Hello and welcome to the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. I'm Sean Hammond, Bears beat reporter for Shaw Local. I have Michael Dwojak joining me again. We are coming to you live on Thursday morning. If you're listening in podcast form, keep an eye out on our Twitter pages. We will let you know when we're going live, and you can join the conversation. We're going to get to some of your questions here this morning, but we have a lot to catch up on, Michael. We have rookie minicamp from last week, and of course, we have the schedule. The schedule is out. We're going to give you our reactions. Michael, how you doing this morning?
I'm good. We're got the schedule out there. I can continue to be amazed at how the NFL is just able to control our lives every single day of the year. You would think that May we're trying to get into baseball. We got playoff basketball and hockey going on. No, we're just waiting for a schedule to come out on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's a fun time. I myself haven't been through this a few times over the years. I am totally tuned out from the schedule leaks. I don't care, until they actually send out the schedule. I'm not gonna get too worked up about it. But we have the full schedule. We have it. Head over to shawlocal.com. You can find the full schedule there. You can find our guy Mark Silverman has his predictions. We can get into that a little bit. He's got the Bears going 11-6. We can talk a little bit about who he sees as wins and who he sees as losses. Big picture, Michael, what were your takeaways when you saw the slate for the Bears this season?
Big picture is that the NFL loves storylines and, doesn't want the Bears to play a division game until November for some reason. That's really interesting. I don't think I've really seen that in a long time. Not playing a division game in the first couple of months. And I'm really curious to see, how that kind of factors in, where it feels like if you look at the schedule, it feels like to be cliche here, feels like a 2-half schedule, where the first half you maybe have some easier games. I know the NFL obviously, changes every year, and teams that we expect to be good are bad and bad are good, all that kind of stuff. But it does really feel like, Caleb Williams and the Bears really need to make their hay in the first half of the schedule here, because that second half of the schedule seems pretty, there are a lot of big division games there and some tough games as well. So it'll be really interesting to see, how much, Caleb, and especially those first few matchups. You got the Titans, obviously, to start things off, and then Houston in week 2. I'm really curious to see, how does Caleb, how does Rome, how do all the other rookies, how does the new Shane Waldron offense kind of adjust in games that, matter, but, don't maybe matter as much as the division games will matter in the second half of the season.
Yeah, certainly the division games, the division schedule is really interesting. The way that is all clumped together. 6 out of the last 8 games are division games. Last year you saw the Bears Packers in week 1, and from having the perspective of having a rookie quarterback, I think this schedule is a good thing for you. You're starting off with a Titans team that, I don't think a lot of people have high expectations for. They have a second year quarterback who played some last year, and obviously they lost Derrick Henry. So, that's certainly a winnable game right off the bat. And you have half the season to get your rookie quarterback and your rookie wide receiver and all your new pieces gelling a little bit before you ever have to play the Packers or the Vikings or the Lions. And I think that could be a good thing for the Bears. Guys, if you're watching us on Twitter, click through to the YouTube. Click through the YouTube link, and you can join the conversation. We'll answer your Bears questions here in the chat in a few minutes. Here, we'll get to all the thoughts and comments from you guys, and we love when you guys join us here and ask us all your questions. So you look at the early schedule. Like I said, the Titans week 1, that week 2 game, at Houston Sunday night, that's going to be a tough one. A nice little test there for this team that a lot of people think is going to take a step forward. But you got a Houston team that had a really nice season last year. They've also added a lot of really good pieces. And of course, you have that storyline with CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams, and the Bears decided not to take a quarterback a year ago. And, now here you are with these 2 quarterbacks, maybe two of the quarterbacks that you hope are going to be around for the next 5 to 10 years playing in big games. And then, just going down the list, you got at the Colts in week 3, a couple of home games against the Rams and Panthers. Overall, I think you're right. Like there are some winnable games early in the season. Certainly the Titans, certainly the Colts and the Panthers. Those are three games that I think you would expect the Bears to be the favorites in. Texans probably not on the road, and then the Rams is a tough game. I mean, they were a sneaky good team last year. Then you got the Jaguars in London before the bye week, and so yeah, there's maybe an opportunity. Michael, do you think what's it going to take for the Bears to get off to a good start here? I mean, there's some winnable games, but this is the NFL. Every game is tough.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, especially for a rookie quarterback and a rookie or a new offensive coordinator, is I think that defense is really going to have to step up. And I know that's a really annoying answer for a lot of Bears fans who are like, we're in this new generation now. We're part of the modern NFL. And you probably are. Like, you obviously have a new quarterback who's expected to be really good and an offensive coordinator who has, good experience. But you're going to need, like this happens every year, you need the defense to kind of lead the way to start things off. And you have a really good opportunity. I mean, you have against the Titans and the Colts, you have like two quarterbacks who are still trying to figure things out. I'm really curious about that Texans game. I mean, I know obviously CJ Stroud had a great year last year. Will he have a sophomore slump? That's something I'm kind of interested about. Obviously, he went on a tear last year, and I'm really curious to see, can they continue that? And then you got, obviously the Rams, and you got the Panthers and the Jaguars before you get that bye week in week 7. So I think, obviously you want to see Caleb develop. You want to see that offense start clicking early, but that defense has a lot of good opportunities to, shut out some, quarterbacks and offenses that are good, but I wouldn't call any of those offenses that they're going to face in the first half of the schedule really elite, other than maybe Houston, maybe the Rams, if you want to go that far. But
the Rams can be elite.
Right.
We'll see what it looks like this year. Certainly a couple of years ago when they won the Super Bowl, they were. And then last year, it's like at times they were and at times they weren't.
Right. So you don't know who you're going to see, obviously. So, they really need it. That defense really, has the experience, is talking a lot. That secondary is talking a lot. You got obviously a good linebacking core. Still, obviously, we have some questions on the line, but that defense is expected to be good. And I think while the offense figures things out in the first probably month and a half, I think the defense will need to really carry the weight there. And I think they have a really good opportunity against some, offenses that could be good, but I'm not really scared by any of those offenses other than Houston.
Yeah. And so you look at the second half of the year following the bye week. And, a couple of years ago, we had that schedule with the Bears where they were alternating home and away every other week. And that may have been the only time their schedule ever looked like that. This year, it's not quite it's pretty much the exact opposite. You got clumps of away games and home games. You got a couple of road games against the Commanders and Cardinals that you think that they should certainly be winnable games. I think the Cardinals could be a team that takes a step forward. Obviously, you got Marvin Harrison Jr., and you're going to have Kyler Murray back for the full season. He only played half the year last year, and that's why they only won a couple of games. And then you got, at home against the Patriots, Packers, and Vikings. And that's kind of after that Patriots game, that starts a really tough stretch here. You got home against the Packers on November 17th. You got home against the Vikings. You got at Detroit, at San Francisco, and then at Minnesota again. And that's a 5-game stretch there with you're seeing all your division opponents. You're taking on the defending NFC champs. That's going to be where we see what, that's going to determine what the Bears season probably, because those are tough opponents. Anytime I think a lot of Bears fans are looking at the Vikings and saying they have a rookie quarterback, we're going to beat them twice. And I wouldn't jump to that conclusion, because I still think anytime you play those division games, they're tough to win, whether you got a rookie quarterback or not.
Yeah, I would agree that. Obviously, we've talked about JJ McCarthy here a bunch, but it'll be really interesting to see where, Minnesota is at that point of the season. I think that's a key thing. You're seeing these teams, these division teams later in the year. You're not seeing them at the beginning of the year where teams are still trying to figure stuff out. They're still trying to figure out who they are and all that kind of stuff. And sure, obviously some teams might, deal with some injuries. The Bears could deal with some injuries at that point in the season. But I think it's really interesting to just, you're seeing these teams when they they have the experience at this point, and they'll know who they are at that point once we get into that final stretch. And you mentioned, that 3-game road, swing, I guess, at Detroit for Thanksgiving, then at San Francisco the next Sunday, and then you're at Minnesota for Monday Night Football. Week 13, 14, and 15, I agree with you, Sean. More particularly, I feel like that is really going to say, where are the Bears at right now? Are they a playoff team, or are they a team that still needs to figure things out? Because, playing at Detroit on Thanksgiving, that obviously is a big environment. Obviously, the whole nation's watching you. You you will have that, Fox game of the week against San Francisco, obviously a team who has so much success for the past couple of years. And you get a Monday night slate at Minnesota against a really good division foe. So, I think that stretch will be really important. I think that's when we'll figure out, are these Bears, are they where we expect them to be? Or are they still, maybe a year away and they still need some work as we head into the final stretch there?
And then you finish things off with the Lions on December 22nd. A quick turnaround against the Seahawks on the following Thursday night. And then week 18 is at Green Bay. Date and time are to be determined. I would be a little bit worried about that quick turnaround right around Christmas, because you're talking about a game on Sunday against the Lions, which isn't an easy, that was one of the best teams in the NFC last year. And then you got a Thursday nighter against Seattle. You got Christmas sandwiched in between there. I know these guys are focused on the job, but at the same time, they got families too. And that's going to be tugging at you during that 4-day stretch there. That's going to be a really hectic short week. And potentially you're going to have the playoffs on the line too. If things go to plan the first however many games, and then you finish things up at Green Bay, just like last year. And there's the potential that this could be a big game for both teams. The Packers were in the postseason last year. The Bears hope to be in that conversation this year. Ideally, both teams are fighting whether for a playoff spot or playoff positioning, and you have you have that game in a primetime slot. That would be a really fun way to end this season. And certainly you're expecting Caleb Williams to come out and play really well this year. You hope so. And if that's the case, you could set yourself up for a really fun finish there in week 18.
Yeah, I think I do like how the NFL kind of made that work. It's just interesting to see, obviously you got Detroit, you got Minnesota, and you got Minnesota week 12, week 15, you got Detroit week 13 and week 16. Obviously there will be a lot of familiarity there. And then obviously, ending the year at Green Bay, I know that they, start things off with Green Bay in week 11. So there'll be some time in between those matchups, but I do think that's a good way to do it, especially, for if both teams are expected to compete the way they do. You can see that being a Saturday night game, probably a Sunday night game, just based on how we kind of expect things to kind of go. But that'll be a really great test. Obviously, Caleb and Rome's, first opportunity to play at Lambeau is going to be, probably one of the coldest days we would expect. Instead of, going in September when things might be a little bit better. So, I think the storylines are all there at this point. Yeah,
that's going to be a cold one. It was cold last year, but luckily it wasn't snowy or anything like that when they finished week 18 up there. I'm not optimistic that will be the case 2 years in a row. I just feel like there's probably a snowstorm coming or something like that for that week 18 finale. In the comments here, I threw up Sylvie's column. He's got his thoughts on who he sees as the winnable games, and we're going to run through them here a little bit, Michael. Click through, guys, to the link if you want to read Sylvie's full column and his thoughts. So he has the Bears going 11-6. These are the losses. I'm going to read off the losses since it's a shorter list here. Houston, the Rams, Jacksonville, Green Bay once, Detroit once, and San Francisco. That's certainly within the realm of possibility here. We expect that Caleb Williams is going to come out and have a really good rookie season. They've got all these pieces around him, and you hope that's what we're looking at. Me personally, I just watching the NFL all these years, you just know that they're going to lose to somebody that they shouldn't. And I think especially when you're looking at those teams, every year there's a couple of teams at the top of the NFC who you really think can reach the Super Bowl. Then maybe there's two or three teams that are just really awful, and then everybody else is in the middle. Those other 10 teams, or what have you. And certainly, I would expect the Bears to be in that group this year. And I just got to think that there's a game that right now we're penciling in as a win. That's probably going to be a loss. What do you think, Michael, about 11-6?
Yeah, I think that's probably the goal, right? I think that's probably what the Bears. I mean, obviously, I'm sure the Bears want to go undefeated. I mean, that's the goal. But if you're looking at things, if you're 11-6, things are going great. Caleb Williams is playing well. The defense is going well. But I agree with you. I think this is why we love the NFL, isn't it? Because of how, maybe they don't want me to say this, but like how mediocre it is, where it's like every game, you could probably win every game. There are so many times during the regular season where you have a team like, San Francisco, Kansas City, the elite teams are losing to a team like, Carolina or like, that's just the beauty of the NFL, where it's like, you don't know what's going to happen each week. Sometimes, things go chalky, but for the most part, every game pretty much goes into the final possession, which I think is why the NFL has such a stranglehold on all of us, in the fall, where like any game can go any way. So, yeah, I mean, we can go like each week and say win, loss, and just look at where we're going to be. But I agree. There are going to be games that I think that they should win, that they're probably going to lose. And there are going to be games that they should lose, that they're probably going to win. I think that's just the beauty of the sport and how things kind of go with the NFL at this point.
Yeah, and look, the last year's team outplayed the Detroit Lions for like all but 4 minutes over 2 games,
Right.
And that's a team that was one step from the Super Bowl. So yeah, like these games are all there. It usually comes down to that fourth quarter, and really any single one of these games on this schedule could be a win or a loss. You don't know how that's going to go. If they catch the 49ers on a bad day, maybe the Bears win that game. You don't know. Certainly, I think, we never know. There's always some teams that take a little step forward. Looking at I'm going to look at the quote unquote easy games. You got Tennessee, you got Carolina, Washington, New England. You could throw Arizona in that conversation. I think that Arizona team, I already mentioned it. I think they could take a little step forward here and maybe be more towards a 500 team. Seattle is not an easy win. I would never chalk that up to an easy win. That's a team that's been really tough to beat the last decade, even with Geno Smith playing, even when Russ wasn't playing well, they were tough to beat. The Colts, like that's not a guaranteed win. Anthony Richardson was really darn good in those 4 games before he got hurt. And still that team went on to finish 9-8, even though he only played in 4 games. And, you're going into their place. That's not going to be an easy win at all. I'm sure there will be a lot of Bears fans there too, because that's a close, easy road trip, but that's not going to be an easy win. There really aren't easy wins. I would say maybe New England and Washington are the only easy wins, I would think. We'll see what Jaden Daniels looks like with the Commanders. If he's running all over the place, that could make things a little bit more difficult. But at least on paper, I think those are going to be 2 of the worst teams in the NFL. And obviously Carolina, if there's one that you chalk up to a win right away, I think it's got to be that one. I don't know if that team's gotten much better.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Carolina, obviously, based on, the Bears getting the number 1 pick, and maybe things, turn around for Young or whatever. But yeah, I would agree. Carolina's probably your favorite, game that they're probably going to win, and then watch, they might lose. I mean, it was a 10-7 game. Wasn't it like a
it was ugly. It was
ugly game last year. Like that could, I mean, anything can happen. Obviously, I know we'll stop, hitting on that point a lot, but I do agree. I think that's probably it. And then, but I also look at the schedule, and I don't think there's a game there I'm kind of like the Bears are definitely losing this game. I think the 49ers game is going to be tough. I think Houston's going to be tough. I think there are, maybe one of the Detroit matchups or whatever. But there isn't really a game or I'm like, oh, like that's a definite loss. Like they'll be lucky if they like are like within a touchdown or something. And I think that's the beauty of this, the schedule where, any game is a win or a loss. But I think for the first time maybe in a while, you head into every week, and then obviously this could change throughout the year. But I think you have headed into every matchup thinking they Bears could win this game, as opposed to what's been happening the last couple of years, where you're kind of like, well, maybe we get close and we, take a moral victory. I don't think there are going to be too many moral victories happening this fall.
Yeah, and look, the number one thing that nobody can control is the injuries. We don't know who's going to get hurt when. We don't know, if Caleb Williams is going to miss a few games. We don't know if the quarterback for the other team is going to be out. Those things are impossible to predict. I think it was 66 quarterbacks last year,
Right,
66 or 68. I forget exactly what the number was.
It's a high number.
That's a lot of quarterbacks who made starts last year. You're probably going to see Tyson Bagent at some point. You're probably going to see a backup starting on the other side. And that's just going to throw a wrench into all this, everything we're talking about right now. It's so unpredictable. But I'm glad we have the schedule because it was time. We can finally start planning. Bears fans can start planning their trips. Michael, you ranked the Bears road trips. What did you have at the top? Let the Bears fans know where they should be heading.
Well, I think the obvious one is obviously London. Like, I think everyone is trying to go to London. Everyone, has been talking about it ever since, it kind of came out that they were going to go there. I don't know. I tried not to be I tried my best travel blogger advice, but I'm also kind of I'm not going to list every single thing you need to do in London when you go to London. Obviously, it's London.
You can't do that. Yeah.
You got to check out all the touristy stuff. I think you can make obviously a fun week trip, maybe check out a Premier League or two game. I think I would definitely do that if I was going, just based on, it's a cool environment. I've still never been to a Premier League game yet, but I think it would be really fun for a lot of Bears fans to kind of get that experience and kind of see what Europe's version of the NFL is and how, cool that is. So London was above and beyond the number one choice. Number two, I had San Francisco. That maybe took a little bit of a hit since they'll be there in December. It's still, it'll be warm and enough. And I think you can obviously do a lot of fun things in San Francisco and obviously do all the touristy stuff, check out Alcatraz, the Golden Gate Bridge, where you can also go out to the wine country and that kind of stuff. And I think number three, I had Arizona. I wouldn't say, obviously I haven't been there. I've been in the area of where the stadium is. And I think it's fine. It's kind of what you would expect for a stadium, area to be. But for when it is during the year, November 3rd, at that point, that's when we first start getting our first chills of the year and things are getting pretty cold. I think that'd be a good weekend to just run away and go to Arizona, hang out in Scottsdale, Phoenix area, play some golf, enjoy some sun, and watch the Bears play Kyler Murray on Sunday. But those are my top three. As we kind of started going down, I was trying to not disrespect towns as much as we were kind of getting I wasn't trying to be like this town is bad or anything like that. But, going down the list, I did have Green Bay pretty high, even though it's in January. But I do feel like Green Bay is a must. It's funny just because, you'd be like, well, what's in Green Bay, Wisconsin? But, from what I've heard, it's a great environment. It's a unique environment popping into a town of roughly 100,000 people. And all of a sudden you just have this huge NFL stadium environment. So those are kind of the top options that fans should probably start looking at right now because ticket prices and hotel rates are going to go up really high right now.
Yeah, I would recommend Green Bay for sure. I would recommend it more if it wasn't in January, but the schedule is what the schedule is. Certainly that has sort of a Wrigley Field type feel to it. I know Bears fans don't want to hear about Lambeau Field, but it's like if they put Wrigley Field in the suburbs, it's just a neighborhood. It's so interesting and the atmosphere is really fun. I would recommend that even for Bears fans. I've never seen a game out at Arizona, but I have been in that stadium. I did cover way back when, before I was doing the Bears. I covered a training camp for the Cardinals. That's a fun area, and certainly it's warm. You gotta love that. I would absolutely recommend heading out to Phoenix. That would be fun. Michael, have you been to London? I have not been to London.
I have been to London, but I was 7 years old, so I was one of my key memories was asking my grandpa where we can find the local McDonald's. So that kind of tells you where I was at when I was
That's where your
taking
head
in
was.
taking in one of the world's best cities. I was mostly focused on McDonald's. So we're definitely going to have to make a return trip sometime soon.
Yeah, for sure. And, so yeah, head over to shawlocal.com. You can read Sylvie's take on the schedule. You can read everything we wrote about the schedule last night. We also want to catch up on rookie minicamp because that was last weekend. We got our first chance to get a look at Caleb Williams in a Bears uniform, or at least in a Bears practice jersey. Same with Rome Odunze and all the other rookies. Karan Amagaji is still injured from college, so he did not participate. Although he was there, he was hanging out and he was, doing some mental reps and stuff like that. But otherwise, we got to see all these rookies, even the undrafted guys. I'll say, like, you don't learn a whole lot from rookie minicamp. They're doing the bare bones of the offense. Even the first day, they didn't actually do 11 on 11. They were lining up 11 on 11, but they weren't snapping the ball. So I don't know. We'll have to ask Flus what exactly that they were learning in that. I guess they were learning where to stand or something. But Michael, what were your thoughts from the brief chance we got to see Caleb Williams over the weekend?
He can throw the ball so that's officially confirmed. He can
throw. I like the zip. I think you could tell he's got a strong arm.
Yeah, and you could see, like, obviously they're wearing shorts, or this isn't anything crazy or anything like that, but it just, they're trying to get down the basics at this point. That was a huge thing that Matt Eberflus, Shane Waldron, Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, they're all talking about the fundamentals at rookie camp right now, trying to figure out what the cadences are, how often they're going to talk, how often they're going to, how they do things essentially. What does the week look like? How do they go from walkthroughs to, getting ready for a game, to playing in a game, to looking at tape and that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much what rookie, mini camp was. They're just learning the basics, trying to figure things out before some vets come in for OTAs here in the next couple of weeks, and mini camp at the beginning of June. But honestly, I think the biggest thing we kind of learned was just, continually, the more we hear from Caleb and the more we hear from Rome, you kind of learn that these guys are really good professionals already as rookies. Caleb already seems to have, like, the poise that you kind of want from a quarterback. And obviously that can change. He can get annoyed with, reporters constantly asking him, why did you throw this interception? Why did you throw this incompletion, in week 4 or week 5? Like, obviously that can change pretty quickly. But I think the biggest thing we learned from, this past weekend is just, these guys know how to say the right things. They know how to do the right things. So I think that's something that gives Bears fans some relief, where you're listening to a Caleb Williams press conference and you're like, oh, that sounds right. That sounds like what a quarterback, should be doing. Obviously that's probably like 2% of what Bears fans really care about at the end of the day. But it seems like, again, going back to the basics, it seems like they have the basics down. Now it's, can you progress in mini camp and then eventually training camp? And once you get to those preseason games, because, quotes are all great and everything, but, it's really about, having that communication when it comes time to playing games.
Yeah, that's what's going to matter. Certainly the media stuff is fun and fans want to hear from the quarterback, but that's not always the most important thing. But you're right. Like, it's fun now for Caleb, he's having fun with it and that's cool. But, when he's got to answer questions after throwing a couple interceptions in a game, it's not going to be so fun. And certainly there's going to be an ebb and flow with all that stuff. I think we saw that with Justin, and we've seen that with every Bears quarterback over the years. And, I thought that Caleb and Rome Odunze made a couple of really nice plays last week. There's a few throws that stood out. At the same time, Rome is far and away the best receiver that was at this camp. So that's how it should be, like you would expect that to be the case. There was, they had all the undrafted guys there, a bunch of tryout guys who, they signed a handful of the tryout guys earlier this week. Austin Reed was playing quarterback. He was the quarterback from Western Kentucky, undrafted guy who they signed. He, getting to talk to him after practice was kind of fun, just because, he trained with the same guy that Caleb was training with all spring, and he kind of talked about what that's like, and he was joking. He doesn't want to come out here and look way worse than Caleb, obviously, like that, it motivates him to keep his game up. Certainly you're not expecting him to play in a game next season. Maybe he's a guy who the Bears keep around on the practice squad, something like that, but you always want to have young quarterbacks and be developing one or two guys. Austin seems like that could be the case for him. Maybe they keep him around as the fourth guy. Michael, you got to talk to the Illini defensive tackle, Keith Randolph. What were your thoughts on Randolph? And is there an opportunity here for him at that defensive tackle spot to maybe surprise some people?
I think there might be. And obviously, I'll have a story on that here in the next couple of days. But just talking with Keith, I think, heading into things, he expected to be drafted. And I think a lot of, draft experts expected him to be drafted too. So he was obviously disappointed with that, but as soon as the draft ended, Ryan Poles was calling him right away, offering him the opportunity to obviously join the team as an undrafted free agent. Other teams reached out to him as well, but he just kind of looked at the situation, the opportunity obviously to stay in Illinois. He's from Belleville, Illinois, a St. Louis suburb, so. He grew up a Rams fan, but obviously now he just wants to, represent his state. He went to Illinois, obviously, for college. So that played a factor, but also, it also plays a factor into what the Bears have on their defensive tackle line right now. I mean, obviously they've got some guys in there, but I wouldn't say that it's, set in stone what this Bears defensive line is going to be. So, for Keith, it makes sense. He wants to try out, and I know Bears defensive line coach, he talked also about, Randolph has, he's got good length. He's got good speed. He's got the ability to play, as a defensive tackle or as a nose tackle. So he's got the opportunity to play, and we'll see more, obviously. Again, it kind of goes back to, we didn't see too much in rookie camp. You're just putting a couple fronts in and that kind of stuff. So you're not really getting deep into things, but Randolph was excited to be at Bears, rookie minicamp. And I think the Bears are excited to kind of get him as an undrafted free agent. He's probably one of the better undrafted free agents you could probably get on the defensive side.
I just dropped another story into the chat too, about Tory Taylor, the punter. We got to talk to him again. He's always, seems like he's going to be a fun one to talk to all year long. He's got a great sense of humor and attitude about all this stuff. And, I talked to his special teams coach in Iowa, and it's just a crazy story. Just the way that, they found this guy in Australia, obviously with the time difference, and that's hard enough to they did go out there and meet him in person and all that stuff. And that was right before COVID. And then COVID happened, and he never got to take his official visit. He didn't get onto campus until about 10 days before they played a game. Didn't know his teammates, and then he was punting as a true freshman. He was getting in there and playing 10 days later. Never seen an American football game. I thought that was a pretty crazy story. Check that out in the chat. I sent the link down there. Tory's going to be fun to watch. Obviously, we got to see him punt a little bit the first day. Obviously, he can boom it. That was pretty apparent. Right. We got to see him practice holding, which is an important job. But maybe not the most exciting thing to watch. But we certainly got to see a little bit of Tory Taylor. Michael, the ball sounds it just sounds good when he punts the football.
Yeah, it's funny. Obviously we've moved on to having Caleb Williams as the number one quarterback. Some people are calling him generational, and when we're at practice, he's all the way in the far field, and we get Taylor punting right in front of us. So kind of had to focus on that instead. But yeah, I mean, it looks good. I mean, the punts look good. He talked about, he'll need to adjust to the wind at Soldier Field. Obviously that's been the major focus for a lot of kickers over the past few years. But I think it seems like he's got it figured out. It's really impressive just how, the story of, a few years ago, he wasn't even playing the sport, and now he's in the NFL. He talked about how, grateful he is to get an NFL contract, and, how crazy it is to be in this position. But from what you can see in two, rookie mini camps, it sounded good. It looked good. It seemed like he's got a really good leg, and it seems like Richard Hightower wasn't really coy about maybe him. Maybe he'll do some kickoffs, maybe do some other stuff as well. So they people want to talk about, they drafted him in the 4th round, and obviously that's a different conversation, but they did get the best punter available in the 4th round. That's very clear. And it'll be really interesting to see how much he really impacts the game and how quickly he can adjust to playing in the NFL, especially in that first month.
There was a note or a thought from LeVar Woods, the Iowa special teams coordinator, that didn't make it into the story that I did think was interesting and notable. He said that Torrey chose Iowa and chose to play in the Midwest for that reason, because you're going to be punting outside, and that's what you're going to do at the next level. Obviously, there's a lot of indoor stadiums nowadays, but at the same time, like, you're going to wind up punting. If you're in the NFL, you're going to punt in Chicago, in Green Bay, in Pittsburgh, in New York, all these cold weather cities. I thought that was a really interesting note. I know Torrey's a little bit older. He's 26 already. So when he was deciding to come over here, he was 21 years old. He was a little bit older than most freshmen.
Yeah.
But still, that's to be thinking ahead like that. Like I'm going to punt in the NFL, and I need to be ready to punt outside in cold weather. Especially for a guy from Australia, where it's beautiful, or at least it seems beautiful. I've never been, but that is a really mature way to approach that, especially for a sport that you've never played. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's a common theme, isn't it, with this rookie class, where it seems like all these guys are really mature. We talked about Caleb and Rome, but hearing from Kieran, obviously he talked to. Obviously, he went to Yale, so he's a smart kid. But he had some really insightful answers about how his recovery process is going to go, ending up with the Bears and that kind of stuff. I mean, Torrey to be able to share his story. Even Austin Booker, their 5th round pick, gave some good answers about his development, where he still needs to go, how he kind of factors into where the Bears are right now in the defensive line. So. I think that's a common theme we see with a lot of these kids now. Maybe the Bears just got lucky with all their choices, but it does seem like a lot of these guys, are prepared and thoughtful and know what to do. And I think there's a major reason why a lot of Bears fans are going to really enjoy this rookie class.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, if you're listening, if you're watching on Twitter, click through the YouTube link. You can join the conversation. We got a few minutes left here. If anybody has any other Bears questions, drop them in the chat. We will answer your questions. Whether that's the schedule, whether that's minicamp, whatever you guys want to talk about, we will talk about it. The other interesting thing from rookie minicamp was it was our first time to talk with the assistant coaches, the coordinators, all the position coaches. I thought it was my takeaway. I really like talking to Thomas Brown, the passing game coordinator. Who has been an offensive coordinator in the league with Carolina last year. He has experience working with quarterbacks. You essentially brought in another coordinator, another guy with experience at the quarterback position to help Caleb Williams. And Thomas basically said, he's working with Caleb. That is his focus. He's another quarterback coach out there, at least right now. His title is passing game coordinator. He's going to be involved with the receivers. But right now, it is very heavily focused on the rookie quarterback and getting the quarterback up to speed. The passing game has to start there. That's the most important element, I think, of this whole thing. And, he had some interesting notes, too. I'm going to read this direct quote from just somebody asked him about what he learned from going through the process with Bryce Young last year and selecting Bryce number 1 overall. And he said, quote, "I just think everything from the evaluation process to begin with, how you go about the selection process to meeting the prospect and the criteria, and understanding the infrastructure in the building." And he goes on to say a little bit more. But I thought that was kind of telling. You got a guy who just went through this whole process, and they may have picked the wrong guy. Jury's still out on that. We're going to, at least I'm going to give that another year or two before we say that CJ Stroud was absolutely the right pick over Bryce Young. But they learned from that. And having that here in this building had to be valuable for Ryan Poles, Michael.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing you kind of learned about this whole, process. And we heard about this from Eberflus and Shane Waldron, where it's like this was not, it seems like they fell in love with Caleb pretty quickly, but this was not a process that they were kind of like, oh, he was good at dinner, we like him, he's got the mechanics, and we're good. Like it based on what we've kind of heard from everyone in the organization. They did their due diligence with this process. They took in a lot of opinions. They're taking in a lot of opinions right now on to how to develop him. I mean, that was a big thing where, a lot of this coaching staff, other than Brown doesn't have the experience of developing a number 1 overall pick quarterback, but, they're reaching out to other people in the NFL. What worked here? What didn't work here? How do you set them up for success? So it's really interesting. And I feel like, obviously I wasn't familiar with, the previous regimes and that kind of stuff and how they kind of did things, but it does seem and feel like it's different as to how the process is kind of unfolded throughout this whole draft process. And now how the process is taking place right now in the off season, where how you're developing him, how you're setting the foundation, how you're figuring things out. So I think that's the biggest thing we kind of learned from, these coaches interviews, with Poles a little bit. It seems like it's a very different process from what we've seen from previous Bears regimes. And I think that's a major reason why a lot of fans should be excited. Is it going to work 100%? No, like we don't know. That's obviously still up to see in a few months here, but there's a different process that this organization has kind of taken in this whole, decision making. And it seems like it's sound as opposed to maybe how some previous, decisions were made.
I know, and we may have talked about it last time or the time before that on the show, but yeah, the Bears don't have a Nathan Peterman. They don't have a veteran quarterback. They have Brett Rippon, but he's not, maybe, I don't know how old he is, maybe 28 or something.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't worry about that too much because you do have a lot of experienced coaches and on this staff who have worked with the quarterback position in various ways. You have Shane Waldron, who is, obviously he's your offensive coordinator. He did it with Geno Smith and Russ Wilson. You have Thomas Brown, who's been a coordinator and has learned from some previous mistakes. It sounds like you have Ryan Griffin, who's his title is offensive assistant. He's going to be working with the quarterbacks. He was one of the backups for Tom Brady when they won the Super Bowl in Tampa a couple of years ago. He's fresh off the football field. He's been playing. Was he on the team last year? He's been playing in Italy. He was last in the NFL in 2022. So that's essentially your veteran quarterback guy
Right.
who's going to be in your ear. At the same time, you don't want to overload Caleb Williams. You don't want to have him thinking too. The thing that's cool about his game is the way that he just reacts to stuff and the way that he can play off platform. And you don't want too much stuff going on up, in his brain when he's playing the game of football. I think they've done a pretty good job of surrounding him with really knowledgeable people who you hope can help take him. You hope can help him hit the ground running here week 1 as soon as the season starts.
And it seems like he's really eager to get running. Obviously, we've heard about how he, learned a little bit about the playbook, with his quarterback coach, before, even going for rookie minicamp. I know there were, other stories from, coaches of, Caleb texting, him at night and being like, hey, like, why are we blocking this way? Like all that kind of stuff. And the coach is like, well, dude, you need to relax. Like it's very clear, like, Caleb's dedicated to this. Like ball is his life. It seems like he's been a kid, who's obsessed with it, wants to do his best. You saw that even in some practices where, he's going through, practices. Maybe he misses a throw here and there, and he's trying to like learn quickly. He's, disappointed. You can see that he has the emotions in there and he wants to learn. And, does that amount to, throwing for 3,000 yards and not throwing interceptions? I don't know. You can be a quiet guy and do well and not be so demonstrative. But I think that you see just from, the little glimpses we've gotten so far, he's committed to being the Bears quarterback. He's committed to being excellent. And I think that's another reason, you mentioned with the support system he's surrounded with and the work ethic that he has, I think it all adds up to a really good situation and a promising situation.
Well, next up we have OTAs. OTAs are starting. They start on the 20th. The first one that's open for members of the media is the 23rd. So hopefully we'll be able to give you guys a little more insight into how Caleb is gelling with the veterans after next Thursday. We'll have to figure out, Michael, when we want to jump on here and chat with Bears fans next. But this has been really fun as always. It's good to finally have the schedule. We can start planning things. Guys, head over to shawlocal.com for all our coverage. He's Michael Dwojak. Find him on Twitter at mdwojak94. I'm Sean Hammond at Sean_Hammond. This has been the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. Thank you all for joining us live. And thanks to everyone who's listening in podcast form. If you want to join the conversation next time, keep an eye on our Twitter accounts. We will let you know when we're going live, and you can join the conversation and chat with us, ask us questions, and we can all just have a really fun time. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great day.